Hello everyone, welcome back to another Matthew the Young Aviator video. Today I'll be showing you how to start up the F-16 Block 50 variant of the Fighting Falcon. So, the F-16 Fighting Falcon is a multi-role fighter, meaning that it can do both air-to-ground and air-to-air very well. With air-to-air, it uses the AIM-120 armor with the high off-bore sight AIM-9X for close-in encounters, and air-to-ground it can do a variety of missions, including SEAD and battlefield interdiction. It can use a variety of weapons using the AGM-65 Maverick or the AGM-88 HARM, which is the high-speed anti-radiation missile, which is used for destroying enemy surface-to-air missile sites by guiding in on their radiation by the radar, and it is very capable in both of these tasks. It can even use the GPS guided JDAMs or the older but still very capable laser guided bombs. So with that said, let's hop into the cockpit. Okay, so here we are in the cockpit of the cold and dark F-16 Viper, also known as Fighting Falcon. To start up, we have to provide it with some power. Let's come down here and put the main power source to battery to do some tests. Now we need to make sure that the FLICUS relay, or the flight control systems relay, that's what it's called, light is on. That says that there is no power going to the FLICUS system. Now this is optional, but we will also do a test for the FLICUS power. Put this to test, the FLICUS test, and we need to see that all the lights turn on, the FLICUS power lights turn on. Here it turns to TO FLICUS, and here is FLICUS PMG, which is Permanent Magnetic Generator, meaning that it is relying on the Permanent Magnetic Generator. We can now put this to normal. And main power, we'll go to main power, so now it will go into main power and we'll take power from when we start the engines. Now after this we will turn on the parking brake and close the canopy. The canopy closed, we will lock the canopy and we will check some warnings. Here we only need to have the engine and hydraulic oil pressure. Here we would have had canopy if the canopy isn't locked. And down here we have to have electrical systems and secondary engine control. So now we can start up the engines. We'll come down here to the jet fuel starter. We use start 2 to use 2 bottles of the jet fuel starter rather than only one. Now you will hear it start spooling up. If we come to the RPM, once it reaches around 20, we may now put the throttle to idle. It needs to be beyond 20 because if you supply fuel to it early, it may not start and you may have to start all over again. Now as this is past 20, we'll come down to the throttle and put it to idle to start providing fuel. Now from here we will wait until it is 60 RPM. So here you will start hearing everything turn on. Give it a couple of seconds. If you come down here, we will see main generator is now extinguished. That means that the main generator is now on and the aircraft is supplied with power. After this, we have to do some checks. So first of all, fuel flow needs to be around 1100 to 1200 pounds per hour. It needs to be between 700 and 1700 pph for it to be considered good. We need to make sure the oil pressure is at a minimum of 15 psi. Nozzle position is around 95 to 100. RPM needs to be between 60 and 80. Fan turbine inlet temperature is less than 650 degrees. And hydraulic pressure is around 3000 psi. With that said, we can now turn on the avionics here. We will turn everything on except for map and data link. They are useless in the F-16 Block 50 variant of the Viper. We'll come here to the communications or the radio, turn it to main, and if we come slightly forward here, there we go. We need to make sure that COM1 and COM2 volume is fully on, and both COM1 and COM2 are on squelch. Now I will come back to where I was. We need to make sure that C and I, communications and interrogation, is on UFC, is at UFC. And now we will turn on the heads-up display, just like that. Last thing, we need to make sure that fire control radar and radar altitude, radar altimeter correction, FCR is on and radar altimeter is on standby. Now, something about the right and left hard points. If you're loaded up with either or both of the TGP and the harm targeting system, we need to turn the left hard point for the harm targeting system and the right hard point for the TGP, which is sort of a camera pod. So, after this, we will now start aligning our INS. We'll set INS to normal align, and up here on the UFC, you will see here. Now, here we have to cross-check the latitude and longitude. Now, I already have it, so I know that northing 36 14.2, this is in decimal minutes, is correct. So I will press enter, double down to select longitude. I know that this is also correct. You can bring it via any GPS, or you can get it from other sources. Press enter, and now the INS should align. After this, we will turn on our data link system, and this is optional, you don't need to do this, but if you want, you can come here and go to the data link page and set up everything as required. Now for us there is no need, so we will not get into it. And now we need to set up our IFF, our identify friend or foe, so if there is any enemy contact we see on radar, we will know if it is a friendly or a hostile aircraft. So we'll come here to IFF, turn the master to norm, then press the IFF button here, and we need to see that all the codes are good. Now here we don't really need it, but I know that all the codes are good, so I will return to list and to INS. Here now we see the ready light at around INS 60 and the align on the heads up display. Now we will engage the stand high attitude director correction, and we need to set the appropriate fly-by-wire stores config. So if we are if we are using an air-to-air loadout or just fuel tanks, we'll set it to category 1. If we are using air-to-ground loadout like JDAMs, dumb bombs, etc., we use category 3. This will modify the fly-by-wire limits so that you won't, so that your stores will work and will just like fall off due to overg. Now here we have nothing except for a fuel tank, so we will leave it on category 1. We'll come down here to check our oxygen supply. We need to make sure our supply is on. This is on normal, not 100% pure oxygen. This is the oxygen dilation switch, and this is on normal. The emergency lever is on normal. We need to make sure that the flow of oxygen is flowing when it goes white and then black, and make sure the oxygen PSI is within the green range. Now we will continue our startup by turning on our radar warning receiver. We'll turn it on by the switch and turn on RWR and jammer on with chaff and flare on, and mode. Now this is totally optional, you can set it to auto. for semi-automatic, and you can set it to program whichever program you want. Correction, I will set to program 1. Now while we are here, we will align the heads-up display. So here we have our heads-up display. We have to align it just like in the F-18. So we will go to the list page, miscellaneous, and HMCS, and here we are. We have to do sequence to a course alignment. We'll press the M0M select, and now simply align it around to where it is. It doesn't have to be perfect, so we can do that, and hold the enable switch D press to align. Now after that, come down here, press M select again, and now we will do a fine alignment using your RD or cursor switch. Align it perfectly onto the HUD. That is good enough. And now with the roll, if you have any roll such as this, you need to simply align the bottom cross exactly with the top, with the big cross. That is good, and we will do that. We have finished aligning. We can come back to the I and S page. And now at this point, you would put in the data cartridge. Now in the simulator, this is not modeled yet. You'd put in the data cartridge in here. Verify this is inserted with the flight plan, everything, and you will load it in. Now in the simulator, it is not simulated yet. And after that, we would check and clear any avionic faults on the test page over here. Here we would press clear and to do everything. So after that, we will come back to the FCR, and now we have finished starting up the aircraft, and everything that I'm going to do right now can be skipped because we are just going to do some checks and tests to make sure that everything is working correctly. Everything in this section can be skipped. So now we have to verify the PTOT heat, the probe heat, tested. So we will test it, put in the test. If you come down here, we will see that probe heat is flashing. Now I just disabled it, and we need to put the probe heat to probe heat to see that the flashing is not there. Now we will check the fire and overheat detection. On the HUD there should be warning. Here there should be engine fire, and here there should be overheat. Now we will check everything else. So for example, indicator lights and its warning. So now we will hold it to start doing a variety of system warnings, just like this.
Counter. Fast flare. Low. Out. Block. Caution. Bingo. Beta. IFF.
There we go. It should do all that and end with IFF. Now we'll come in front to check the secondary engine control. So there we go. So here we have engine control primary. We'll set it to secondary. Now before we do that, actually we have to check that the everything. So RPM percent is around 62 to 63. Nozzle position is at 100. If we go to secondary engine control, nozzle position will reduce to 0 and RPM will reduce slightly to around 60. Now here you need to put your everything on the brakes, and we will now put our engine RPM to mil once it reaches 85%. Snap back. And check for good engine indications. With that done, we can put the engine control back to primary and close the guard back to normal. Now this has disengaged the parking brake, so I will re-engage it so I don't have to hold the brakes. And now we will check the flight control system that is working. So we will do this to sort of warm up the hydraulic system, because we will be doing an F-16 bit. If we come down here to the flight control system, we will be doing a bit switch. There we go. Accidentally did off again, so it shows fail. Now it is running the flight control system's bit. After we let this cycle through its entire bit, I will see you then. We'll know when run is no longer illuminated. So I will see you then. Okay, so here we are after the F-16 bit, the built-in test. Here you can see that there is no lights, meaning that there was not a failure. And we will continue with our startup or test process. Here on the fuel quantity selector, we need to do test, and on the fuel indicator here, there should be the fuel indicators on 20, and it should show 6,000 pounds. Down here it should show forward fuel low and aft fuel low, indicating that everything is working as intended. Back to normal, just like that. Now after this we have to check the digital backup system. So we will turn the DBU on here, and we will test all of our controls. So up, down, left, right, and rudder we will do it, and rudder you can see it in the back there. So all controls are good. Now usually you would have the ground chief check the controls for you, but we can do it ourselves if you want to. Digital backup to off, DBU light extinguishes. Now after this we'll do the manual pitch. So let us first put it to override, then we will do as much pitch as possible, then we will disable it, and as you can see it reduces. So the manual pitch override is working, and then the tail returned to its good original position without the manual pitch override. And finally, the last step we have is we will check the EPU power. So first of all we need to check our EPU fuel, which is called hydrazine. Make sure it is around 100%, between 100 and 95%. And now we will set the oxygen switch over here to 100%. Right here I will actually come back to my original position. Now we will hold down the wheel brakes, and we will push RPM to around 10% more than normal, so around 70%, while holding down wheel brakes. We'll come down here and we will switch the EPU generator here and hold it. Make sure the EPU lights are on. Over here this light is on, and here is air. There are no warning lights over here. They might turn on after just around the moment you turn the EPU gen on. And make sure everything is good. Make sure engine indications are decent. EPU fuel is good. Now we will run out of EPU fuel, so we'll put it back to off. It's also back to idle, and the oxygen supply back to normal. Now here we'll have the oxygen low. Just wait for it; it will turn off. And finally, with our INS fully aligned, a line is flashing on the HUD, and ready is flashing over here on the DED. We may put it to nav. So that is the entire startup process. After this, I will show you how to taxi the Viper to the runway and how to take off. So, I will see you then. Okay, so here we are back where we left off with the startup. So, now something with the DED, we may return to this page before we taxi. Now at this point we need to make sure that the parking brake is disengaged and is on anti-skid. We need to turn on the taxi lights down like that, and we need to press the nose wheel steering or missile step button. Here you see AR, nose wheel steering, which is air refueled nose wheel steering, and we may now taxi before we will turn on the lights. So here I have anti-collision lights on 1, like that. Position light, wing and tail light bright, and fuselage bright. Flash, we put this position lights on flash. Before takeoff, we'll put them on steady. Formation lights on bright, master on normal, area refueling on bright. These are all external lights. Now we may start taxiing. So throttle up slightly to start taxiing. We may turn off the vessel caution, just push. And don't taxi very quick. The F-16 Fighting Falcon, or Viper, is known and notorious for tipping over at very high speeds. So taxi slowly, not very fast. Keep it around below 10 knots in turns, and straightaways at around 25 knots or less. Okay, there we go. And now we have a straightaway all the way until we reach the runway. So I will taxi the F-16 Fighting Falcon towards the runway, and after that I will see you then, just holding short of the runway. So I will see you then, just taxi the F-16 to the runway and hold short around the runway. I will see you then. Okay, so here we are holding short of the runway at Nellis Air Force Base. Now you can do these following steps before or after while lined up on the runway, or over here. I will do them over here before we are on the runway. So first, landing lights off to off, not taxi. Here our position lights are going to be steady. Probe heat set to probe heat. If it was set off, you set it to just to probe heat. Now verify that the stores config is set well. We don't have any air to ground, so it is category 1. And radar altimeter over here to radar altimeter. Here we will set our ejection controls to on, so if we want we could eject. Now taxi onto the runway. Hold your wheel brakes. There we go. So throttle up to around 90 RPM. And check for good indications. Nozzle is 0. Oil pressure is between 25 and 85. FTIT, fan turbine temperature, is less than 950, around 950. And make sure hard oil pressure is good. So with all those checks, full throttle to afterburner. Now something to note, if you want, you could just not do afterburner. You could go military throttle. Now at around 70 knots, disable your nose wheel steering, and at around 170 start pulling up. After that, reduce to mil throttle. Bring your gear up. You need to do it before 300 knots, so you won't damage your gear. And there we go. So the flaps will retract themselves, and now I will just pause the simulator. You have just taken off your first F-16 Viper. So that is the end of today's video. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and ring the notification bells to be notified of any future uploads. Comment if you have any questions. I will try my best to answer them. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next time.